So on Twitter, at AnthonyD_Heat, and on the YouTube community tab, I asked you guys to send me your NBA or Miami Heat bold takes for this upcoming season. So let's get right into it. Starting with my guy at Young Cooch, something like that, says Bam ends the season top 3 in MVP voting. Now, this is the first of a few bold takes that are very high on Bam. Obviously, as a Heat fan base, I think we're very excited about him because he very clearly took the next step in his offensive game, particularly with the three-point shooting. He's already let it fly several times in the preseason. Obviously, we saw what he did in the Olympics, and we're hearing Spoelstra verbally give him the green light. So obviously, we're exciting. But I will say, my guy Young Cooch, this is one of the bolder takes of the entire video. While I do think Bam has the potential to be an MVP caliber player because he always will be top 2 or 3 on the defensive side of the ball. Well, I used to say number 1 and, definitively number 1. But that boy Victor Wembanyama might have something to say about that for a long time. But anyways, Bam Adebayo will always be one of the best defenders in the entire league. He's already been a guy that's been scoring 20 points per night. So if he continues to improve his offensive game and get up to 23, 24 points per night, there's no reason he shouldn't be in the MVP conversation. But just because there will always be guys out there who will score close to 30 a night, Bam will never get MVP votes over those guys, just because that award is typically offensive heavy, although it shouldn't be because defense is 50% of the ball. But Bam Adebayo will never get that award just because he won't score enough points. And particularly this season, you're going to have guys like Luka and Shea and Joel Embiid. Well, although Joel Embiid said he's not playing back-to-backs, I don't see how he could ever win an MVP saying that. But anyways, Luka and Shea, I think are the number 1 and 2 picks this year. And I guess Bam could still technically finish third, but you're always going to have Jokic and Giannis and all these other heavier scorers that will be more likely than Bam. But I do like the optimism by you there. This is another one by my boy Prod by Pack TV. Shout out to my basement boy. But he says Bam will establish himself as the Heat's number 1 option this season. This one is not as bold a take because I think some Heat fans already feel this way. Obviously, when you look at last regular season and Jimmy Butler's lackadaisical approach to the regular season, although some people believe he's going to take this year serious, that remains to be seen, of course. But people already said that last year, Bam Adebayo established himself as the number 1, although he wasn't the leader in shot attempts because you're always going to have Tyler Hero and now a full year of Terry Rozier. Bam is one of the captains. He is the defensive anchor, and he obviously is looked at as an offensive hub, whether he's playmaking or scoring. So a lot of people see him as the number 1 guy. Maybe that does become more definitive this season. I could see it just because I do think Jimmy's going to take the regular season serious, but just slightly more than last year. He's still going to look to conserve his body for the playoffs, I do believe, and I think Bam's just going to continue getting better. So I could see this happening. Here's another one by my boy at Minute Maid Mac on YouTube, who said Bam makes All NBA second team and the Warriors make another finals run. I don't remember if Bam made All NBA last year or before. I know it's positionless now, so now you're asking him to be a top 15 player in the NBA. That I could see. Obviously, it's a bit difficult because, like I said, it is positionless. But this is all going to kind of depend on the Heat's record. If they can finish top 4 in the Eastern Conference, which I know some people might believe can happen, then Bam can make All NBA second team. But without that, I highly doubt it. And as far as the Warriors, I won't bet against Steph Curry, but there is a number of teams in the West that's way better than them. But I did drop my Western Conference standings prediction video a few days ago, so y'all could check that out for my full thoughts there. Here's another one by my boy at Miami Heat Rants on Twitter. He said Bam wins MIP, averaging 26 a night with 2+ 3-pointers a game. I'll tell you this, if Bam averages 26 a night, he's going to need to take a lot more than 2 threes a game. This is a very bold take. I think if Bam was to ever get there, it would have to be baby steps. I think last year he was only at like 19. Another thing that would help him is getting to the free throw line a lot more. But I think as far as his offense goes, this is going to be a year of him finding a good balance between shooting the 3 and attacking the paint. I think a lot of Heat fans might be frustrated with him at points because they think he's hanging on the perimeter too much. But that's just going to come with experience for Bam as he starts to extend his range. He's going to have to find a good balance. But MIP, that'd be a lot to ask for. If he does jump 7 points per game, he could win it. I just don't think that is super realistic, at least over a 1-year jump. This one is from at PS3DJ09, who says Regardless of how much Heat fans hoped and yearned to see it, Bam and Khalil Ware will rarely be on the floor together, and the few times it happens will be disposed, tweaking the rotations to fill key injuries. This is something I do agree with. Obviously, Khalil Ware balled out in the Summer League. He was great in the first preseason game. Not as much of a factor in the second so far, which is, I'm recording this after the second game, so I haven't seen more than that at this point. But I just want to temper expectations because Khalil Ware is a young rookie. He's very inexperienced, went to college for 2 years, but didn't play much his first year as a freshman. And he's still a guy that physically, I think, has a long bit of a ways to go. I'm not going to lie to you. He is a little bit skinny for his size. So I do think Spoelstra will want to be more cautious when using him. I don't think he's as ready as a guy like Jaime Jaquez last year, for example, who was a 4-year college guy. So I do agree with this comment, and I don't think we'll see much of Khalil Ware and Bam, at least not consistently. Maybe sprinkled in throughout the season, like he's saying, but definitely not too often. Moving on, we got a few positive Jimmy Butler. Well, most of them are positive, but these are some of y'all hot Jimmy Butler takes. My boy at JT the Fox 101 YT says Jimmy Butler plays in playoff mode throughout the season. This is one of the biggest talking points amongst Heat fans is, are we going to get serious Jimmy? Are we going to get contract year Jimmy? As I've been saying, it's not technically a contract year because he has a player option for next season. So worst case scenario, he doesn't play great this season. There is some injuries, and then he could still opt in for the following season, which would make that his contract year. So he's not technically in a contract year, but if you watch that documentary Starting Five on Netflix, you can tell Jimmy is back. Obviously, he had some personal issues last year with his father and everything. You should watch that documentary. I highly recommend it. And it seems like this season he was able to sort of clear his mind and refocus on his passion for basketball. So I do think that could kind of ignite his love for the game. And I think he acknowledges he's getting up there in age. There's not a lot of time to waste, I guess, in terms of playing around, and then you're in the playing tournament and you could get hurt again, because that's what happened last year. So I do think he understands the importance of being at least top 6. So I do think we see an improved Jimmy Butler, although nothing crazy. I will say that. This one is from my boy at Alex Shelman, another basement boy. What's up, my guy? Make sure y'all check out the Basement's post-game streams for every single Heat game during the season. I will be on most of them after I get my personal reaction videos out. I'll go over there and stream with the boys, so make sure y'all check that out. But he said, this is bold coming from me given the context of how I view him. But Jimmy Butler will average 25 points per game. I think Jimmy was hovering around 20 points per game last season, so a 5 points per game jump is massive, and I just don't think we see it because you're going to get improvements from Bam. You have a full year of Terry Rozier. Jaime Jaquez is coming off the bench, and he's not going to be shy doing it. Alec Burks, Duncan Robinson. This team has a lot of scorers. I know the offense as a whole has been terrible, but I do think they have enough guys where the offense should be top 10. There's no excuse to be any less than that. And I just don't think Jimmy Butler is going to need to score 25 points per game, so I don't think he will. I think that's a bit too high. In my prediction video, I still had him at around 20 points per game. You could check out my video about a week ago where I predicted his stats for the entire season, but that is bold. This one is the negative comment, and you'd expect it from no one less than my girl, Easily Nunu on Twitter. Shout out my girl, another basement member. And she says, I'll be right as usual, and you'll have to admit it as usual. And I know exactly what she's talking about because there's no doubt about it. She is not the biggest Jimmy Butler fan. She's not a fan of, I guess, the low effort. I don't know. I guess she just doesn't think that you can win a championship with Jimmy Butler because he hasn't done it yet. I get the logic, and obviously in 5 years with the Heat, it's been a failure, right? Because if this team and Jimmy Butler is telling you the goal is a championship and they haven't won a championship, well then by definition, they have failed to achieve the ultimate goal. She doesn't believe Jimmy Butler can do it. We'll see. As much as I love New, I want nothing more than to prove her wrong. And I guess hoping Jimmy Butler will do that this year. This one from YouTube at my boy at SoulRackBlonde9480 says Jimmy Butler will play more than 65 games and makes the All-Star team with Bam, and Jaime Jaquez will be sixth man of the year, and Khalil Ware will take the second string center from Love. He's very optimistic on the Miami Heat. So the one thing that I want to point out, though, is the 65 games for Jimmy Butler. That's the mark that I have him set at. I don't need to see him play 70 or 80 as much as I would love to see it. I think 65 is a good benchmark because that is what's required to win the awards and all that stuff. So I would like to see him get at least 65 and try when he does play 65. So that part I agree with. Obviously, there's a lot of other stuff there, which we'll get into throughout the course of this video. We got a lot of comments here. Going forward, this one is our first Tyler Hero one at Heat Forum on Twitter. Shout out to my boy over there. He says, Tyler Hero is going to have a healthy season and prove the haters wrong. Hashtag don't sleep on the Heat. We'll end the season with a top 5 seed. Also, Bam, DPOY, and Spo has a chance to Coach of the Year. Crazy. Spo's never won Coach of the Year. That needs to happen. But we'll talk about his first point here about Tyler Hero. I thought last year was a make or break year from Tyler Hero. It was more of a break. Obviously, he didn't stay healthy, missed about 40 games, and then he had a chance to be the guy in the postseason, and he really was only good in that one game, which was game 2, and the rest he kind of stunk it up. But I will say I'm excited about Tyler because, one, I do like Tyler Hero, regardless of when I'm critical of him, but I like his media day answers. In the past, he seemed to care about some awards and numbers, and he straight up said this year he's about winning and he's about having fun, and I think that's the right mindset to have to be successful. And low-key, I'm moved by the buzz cut. I think the buzz cut means that he means business, so I'm excited to see it. But he's a guy at his age I'd like to see play 70-plus games, so that's what I'm going to be looking for there. This is my boy at JackAzul1, the GOAT on Twitter. He says Nico for MIP, and we got another one from my guy at EdDroidYT on YouTube, who says Jovic breaks out and shuts everyone up, saying Ware should take his spot in the starting lineup. So a couple of guys here that are very high in Nikola Jovic. I will say I don't think there's a lot of haters on him, but when he says to everyone shut up, I guess he's talking about more so the Khalil Ware fans. I just don't think Ware plays because of Spoelstra. Like, I don't think that's going to necessarily be an indictment on Jovic playing well. I think if anybody's going to replace Jovic, it's Haywood Highsmith or maybe Kevin Love. But I don't think Ware has any chance, at least not anytime soon. But regardless, I'm high on Nikola Jovic as well. I do think the MIP conversation from my guy Jack Azul is a bit bold just because the volume won't be there. He'll be the guy that will get a few shots a game from behind the arc, maybe a couple transition baskets, but not much else outside of that. But I am super high on him this year because the defense was improving last year. He's only gotten bigger, coming in at 240 pounds. So I think he'll be able to hold his own on the defensive end. And now he's just got so many great offensive players around him in the starting lineup. He can just act as a spacer. And when he gets the rebound, he'll still be allowed to push the ball. And as a guy who's just being asked to catch and shoot open threes and run with the ball when you get it, I think that's a bit of an easy role for Jovic to have. He won't have to worry about too much. And for that reason, I do think he'll be successful. This one, we got a couple of Hame ones coming up. First from my guy at Big Heat Energy on Twitter. Says Hame 6th man of the year and also Khalil Ware on a rookie team, which doesn't seem that bold until you realize he's a rookie big playing for Spo. Exactly. I don't think Ware will play too much this year. I have him at about 50 games, but I have a whole video predicting him and Larson's stats this year too. But Jaime Jaquez, he will be a guy that will have volume, I believe, because coming off the bench, I think he's going to kind of be the guy looked at to score, right? Obviously, Duncan will be out there. He'll take some shots away. We don't know which of the starters are going to mix in because if he's playing a lot with Terry or Tyler, that'll take his shot attempts away also. But just from what I've been hearing about Jaime Jaquez this offseason, I think he's going to be a guy that's going to stay aggressive. In the scrimmage games versus Team USA, we heard he was phenomenal. I hear him talking in media day, and he said his goal is to stay aggressive. And I just think he's so offensively gifted and talented. He's one of the best isolation scorers on this team. I guess him and Terry Rozier are really the top two. You can throw Tyler Hero in there as well. So I do think off the bench, he'll get a lot of opportunity. I'm not sure what the other 6 men in the league look like to compare it, but I certainly think he has the skill to win 6th man of the year. And another guy here at bronze_hairline_, even though his profile picture is Thon Maker, I believe, but his handle is Bronze Hairline. Anyways, he also has Jaime as 6th man of the year, with the Heat being a top seed and Bam's jump offensively. So he's very high in the Heat. And again, I don't think Jaime making 6th man of the year is too ridiculous. There might be some other guys out there who will get even more volume, but I think Jaime is going to get his fair share of shots up. So he does have a chance. Moving on, at Adrian's JS Cyan something on Twitter. Shout out to my boy. I apologize for anyone's name. I'm saying it wrong here. But Adrian, he says that Alec Burks will have a similar role to Josh Richardson last season. Josh Richardson was a bit of a tricky case last year because he came in with some injuries, then got healthy and didn't play well, then got a little bit more healthy and played better, and then he got the shoulder ripped out by Jaylen Brown. So bit of an inconsistent role, so I'm not exactly sure what you mean, but Josh Richardson was a part of the rotation at points last year. It's just going into this season, I don't know how much of a role Burks will have. Talent-wise, he certainly deserves it because he's always been a great shooter, particularly the last couple seasons. They're even saying that he can be a backup point guard, which outside of Drew Smith, this team doesn't have now because Isaiah Stevens isn't technically on the roster, at least not yet. But I'm not sure because you're going to have the 5 starters, Terry, Tyler, Jimmy, Jovic, Bam. And off the bench, if Spo goes 9 deep, I think Duncan's a lock. I think Jaime's a lock. I think Hayward Highsmith is a lock. That's 8. So who does that 8th spot go to? Does it go to Alec Burks? Does it go to Kevin Love? Does it go to Khalil Ware? You'd think it would have to be a big man, which means that I don't think Alec Burks actually gets it, but he is too talented of a player to not be in the rotation, so I'll be interested to see what happens. This one is about Isaiah Stevens from my boy at Ed Loves Max, who says Stevens will be an integral part of the rotation, will get minutes on the bench and be a starter perhaps after All-Star break. Shades of Oladipo and Lowry. I obviously love Isaiah Stevens. I think he is a point guard, the truest of facilitators, reads the game at such an impressive speed, but he's not on an official roster spot. And if you go based off Spo's rotations in preseason so far, he's looking like he loves Drew Smith, and I guess particularly what he brings defensively, which is not something Isaiah Stevens gives you right now. If it was up to me, I would love Isaiah to be an integral part of the rotation because he's the only true point guard or true facilitator that they have. But at this point, I don't have a lot of hope that he'll get more run or even the roster spots over Drew Smith, just because for years the Heat have been obsessed with Drew Smith for some reason. Moving on here, we got a few people that are very high on the Miami Heat. This one's from at Jojo Ari, who says the Heat will be a top 3 team. And we have another one here from at Hero Prodigy, who says we can get the 3rd seed. In my official predictions video, I had the Heat at 6 in the East, just because that's what I believe they will be gunning for. I think because they still got Jimmy Butler, who will want to take some nights off, I think they're really only focused on getting the top 6 seed to avoid the play-in. I don't think they really care about home court advantage or anything like that because they've proven they can win on the road in the playoffs time and time again. And if you're saying they're the 3rd seed, well then who do they jump? Do they jump Philly? Do they jump Indiana? Do they jump Orlando? Do they jump Milwaukee? I don't know. Right now, I think I got my top 3 as, I think it was New York, Boston, and did I have Indiana, number 3? You could check out my Eastern standings prediction video too, but I think that might have been my top 3 with Milwaukee at 4. And then I believe I had Philly at 5 and Miami at 6. So that's bold, but hey, if they're able to do that, that tells me that they were healthy all season. So I'll be happy with it. I can't see it happening. This one from at EJ Brewski says they'll be a top 4 seed. Top 4 would be nice just to get the home court advantage, but I don't think it's super realistic. But we got this one next from Trevian777, who says, this is the deepest Miami Heat team ever. My bold take is that a fully healthy Heat roster will be literally too much for any team in the East to handle. We will be back in the Eastern Conference versus Boston once again. This is what I talk about when I've been mentioning the duality of a Heat fan, right? Because you bring back most of the roster that you had last season, right? Minus Caleb Martin, who's obviously an integral part to your finals run in 2023. So theoretically, it's like we should repeat what we did last year, right? But then Jimmy Butler wasn't healthy that last year. But then the year before, what happened when he was healthy? Well, you went to the finals. But then you were also missing Tyler Hero. So now that if you have him and you add in Terry Rozier, well, then maybe you should make it back to the finals. But then I think about just last year where they got their ass kicked. So that's the duality of a Heat fan, is I don't know what this team is going to do because quite literally in the 6 years of the Jimmy, Tyler, Bam core, we've seen them get their ass kicked in the first round twice, and we've seen them make the finals twice, and we've seen them make the conference finals once, or I guess 3 times we made it seem the conference finals, right? So I don't know how to feel. The extremes of this core has been so high and so low. Now, you can make excuses for the 2 ass-kicking first rounds because the 1 year was the year after the bubble. Heat were worn out. They had the shortest offseason in NBA history. And then last year, you had no Jimmy Butler. You had no Terry Rozier. You had a hobble Duncan Robinson. So I can give you a legitimate excuse for why I agree with you, Trevian. But then again, I feel like that's exactly what it is excuses. So I'll have my official prediction on the Miami Heat's finish to this season in a video within the next week or 2 before the regular season starts. But I do say I don't disagree with you. I will say that because when we've seen this team healthy, they've had a lot of playoff success. Moving on, we got Tim Tool, also known as Heat Tua. I'm not sure I like that name. Nah, just jokes. Anyways, he said, bubble run aside, the Miami Heat has not delivered a championship team. Just because you can run through the East after coasting through the season, evident by the seed rankings, doesn't mean they're built to beat the team from the West. Bold take, this is the final run. This is a great point because while I do believe the Heat could beat a Boston in the playoffs because we've seen it, I believe they can beat a Knicks because we've seen it, although they're wildly different. I believe they can beat a Bucks because we've seen it multiple times. I'm not sure they can beat a Denver. I don't think they have the size to match up with Nikola Jokic, although Bam plays him very, very well. But then Aaron Gordon killed you, in the last finals. So who are you going to put on Aaron Gordon now? Are you going to put Jovic? I don't think that's going to go well. They really haven't done a lot to address the size unless it's Khalil Ware, who I'm not sure is ready yet. Now, maybe by the playoffs he'll be ready, but I don't know. The West is very, very stacked, but it's that Denver team that scares me the most. I guess who's some of the better teams out there? You got Phoenix. Some people will still say the Lakers. You of course got the Timberwolves, although I do think they got worse. You got I don't know. Off the top of my head, I'm not thinking who else the West has right now. But they're tough, particularly the Denver Nuggets. I guess the Kings are still out there too. But yeah, could this be the final run? Truthfully, I thought last year was the final run. I thought they were going to make a major move, meaning trade Tyler Hero pretty much. But I don't know. It all depends, man, because obviously Jimmy going into that player option, it can mean a lot depending on how this season goes. But if it goes bad, could I see this being the final run? Sure. Yeah, truthfully. And then on the contrary, at Gabriel Iriola says, says NBA champs. Simply put, hey, if you're healthy and you don't play Denver, maybe. OKC, that's the team. I literally have them number 1 in the West. That's the team I'll probably have going to the finals. I could maybe see the Heat beating them, though, just because they don't got too much experience, although they won a playoff series or 2 the last several seasons, but they're still kind of young, but they got some size now, though, with Hartenstein and Holmgren, so I don't know. Anyways, moving on. We got from at Grant Ski Films, Boston, Philly, and the Knicks doesn't make it out the first round. And on the contrary, you got my boy Amir at Moda2123 who says, bold take, either the Knicks or stupid Sixers make it to the conference finals. I will say, though, with regards to my guy Shogun here, I don't think Philly makes it out the first, they might make it out the first round. I don't think they'll make it out the second round because their problem has always been their star player folding in the playoffs. So what did they do? They added the biggest playoff choker in the league and Paul George to their team. I don't think that helps them come playoff time. So I'm not as high on them come postseason. And as far as Boston and the Knicks, I am more higher on the Knicks. So like Amir says, if I had to pick one of those 2 to make the conference finals, I would say the Knicks. But again, it depends because if I'm saying the Heat could make the conference finals if healthy, but I'm saying the Knicks could make it, well, then I can't also say Boston makes it. It just depends how the seedings is there. But of those 3 teams, not including the Heat, I am the highest on the Knicks and the lowest on Philly. This one, we got a few trade ones to finish off the video here. First from at Adebayo fan 13 says, Dame still goes to Miami after contract ends and team builds with his teams up. My fault. And teams up with his BFF Idris. Dame doesn't seem all that happy in Milwaukee, at least from what we've heard and what we've seen. I will say that I think if Dame was to leave, it would depend on the success of that team. Obviously, they came up very short last year where they lose in the first round, but Dame was hurt. Giannis was hurt. But if things aren't going great for that team and Dame isn't happy and he asks out, I could see them sending him over to Miami. Miami usually gets their guy. Of course, they wanted Jimmy Butler when he left Minnesota. He ended up in Philly. And then just a short, year and a half later, he ends up in Miami. Most of the time with these stars, I guess all the time with these stars, eventually they end up going to where they want to go. So I don't think this is a crazy take. Here's one from Mr. Damien305 who says Hero or Jimmy gets traded at the deadline. If things are bad, I do think the Heat will make a move, but they got to be really bad. And I don't think it'll be Jimmy, though, unless Jimmy asks out, which I don't think he will. If they do make a move, it'll be to trade Tyler Hero, but he'd have to be playing well enough to make somebody incentivized to take on his contract because the Heat are not going to attach a first-round pick to move on from him. That I can't see happening. This one is from my guy at Top Notch Hot Takes. Make sure you check out my boy, also the owner of at Miami Heat Network on YouTube. My boy does his own Heat content, so make sure you go check him out. He's coming with fire videos almost every single day. And he says, Miami Heat trade for a star player this trade deadline. Again, this all depends on how the Heat's doing and who's out there, right? Because right now, who could possibly be out there? Is Brandon Ingram a star? Do you want him? Zach LaVine, right? These are the names that we've been hearing. Lauri Markkanen has signed his extension. He's no longer on the market. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell has signed his extension. So who's out there? You won't get a guy like Luka or Ant, at least for another few years. So if you're a Heat fan, you kind of want those teams to fail. So maybe the Heat could get one of them, but that won't be for a few seasons. So if things are bad, could the Heat swing a trade? Probably. Do they have a lot of draft picks? No. That means they'd have to trade one of their young guys, and I do think a guy like Jovic, obviously Jaime, but Khalil Ware, Pelle Larsson, I do think those guys have value. A lot of Heat fans might not want to move on from them. A lot of Heat fans might, but it just depends who's out there and how the Heat are doing. So I can't really give a bold response to that now because I don't know how the record is going to be. And lastly, this one from my boy, the GOAT, at Dan the Film Gent, whose hot take was basically that he's looking forward to the season. He mentions that he's excited for Jaime and he's excited for Pelle Larsson. But maybe is a bit of a hot take to be excited for this year because some Heat fans are bored the way last season ended. And last year you were hoping to get Dame, you didn't get it. This year we were hoping to get Donovan Mitchell, you didn't get it. So a lot of Heat fans are bored, but I do think the young talents is enough alone to get you excited. If you did not watch the Summer League squad, they were can't miss TV. And it wasn't just Khalil Ware and Pelle Larsson. It was Isaiah Stevens and Josh Christopher and Kashad Johnson. All of those guys were sensational. So I am looking forward to seeing their spot minutes throughout the season due to injuries or whatever the case may be. And I am also looking forward to seeing the improvements of Bam Adebayo and a full year of Terry Rozier on this team. He just provides a insane offensive dynamic this team hasn't had in a long time. And I'm also looking forward to seeing the improvements of Jaime and Jovic and whether Jimmy Butler is going to try harder this season. Right? There's so much to look forward to this season and just how the Heat stack up against the rest of the improving East. So I'll be watching every game. And this year, I'm really looking forward to it as well. That being said, thank you to everyone that submitted. I think I got to almost everyone, unless I missed someone by accident. I'm apologize if I did, or if you submitted after I'm recording this video. But to everyone that did submit, I do greatly appreciate you. I'll be doing some more of these reaction videos to y'all takes. So make sure you follow me on Twitter and subscribe on YouTube next time I drop the next, I guess, Q&A type of episode, whatever. But like the video, subscribe, all that good stuff helps the algorithm out a ton. It's a very long video, so if you stay to the end, let me know that you're a GOAT by commenting your favorite basketball shoe to hoop in, and I'll be sure to heart all y'all comments. Anyways, I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace out.
Look, pull up in your city tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.